Hello, welcome to QE Automotive. Today we're going to be showing you how to use a tire machine to remove and reinstall a tire. The first thing that we need to do is lift the tire safely and carefully onto the machine. By doing this, we're not going to use our backs, we're going to bend our knees, grab the tire, carefully place it on the bed of the machine, and at this point we are going to remove the air from the Schrader valve. With the tire on the table, now we can use the valve stem removal tool to allow this groove to go into the Schrader valve where the actual valve is located. Place the tool inside the Schrader valve and carefully and easily turn it left or clockwise and use your second hand to grab that valve as it's being removed so it doesn't shoot up into the air. Now with the air out of the tire, we are going to perform what's called a bead brake. Now to do this, you've got to carefully place the tire on the ground, remember to bend with your knees, keeping the Schrader valve at the 12 o'clock or the 6 o'clock location. This is crucial because if we have it at the 3 o'clock or the 9 o'clock, depending on where this bead breaker comes into place, we can then shear off the tire pressure monitoring sensor that's located behind the Schrader valve if it is behind this point of contact. Now we will see this in action right now by me pressing the center pedal on the machine, which I'll show you in a little bit. But the center pedal will then allow the compressed air to come in and press this bead brake system. After we've done the first brake, we're going to rotate this 180 degrees around so that the Schrader valve is on the bottom, so the 6 o'clock location. Once the outside of the tire has been done, we'll rotate to the inside of the tire. Again, keeping the Schrader valve at the 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock locations. At this point, we'll grab the bar, bring it in towards the tire, lower it down so that the duct's head is resting on the rim and against the rim. Then we're going to grab this yellow bar and bring it to a vertical position. After we have the correct position here, we're going to adjust this little turn screw until the duct's beak or bill is just off of the rim, the 1/8 of an inch that we discussed. So 1/8 of an inch right there gives us proper room around here so that we're not running any metal against metal or anything touching on the rim. We are then going to grab our spray bottle of soapy water, okay, give it a single pump, and we're not giving the tire a bath, we are just going to lubricate around the bead. Okay. With the duct's head in the proper location, we're going to grab our tire bar that's only used for removal. We're going to place it underneath the head of the duct, place it onto the bead, and then carefully pressing the other side while pushing over with a flat hand, you are going to have that tire come over the head of the duct. With your flat hand like this, we are going to pulse the tire in a rotation a couple times. Remove the bar when safe, place it back into the holder, and again continue to pulse the tire off the rim. Then continue to lift up the tire on the rim so that it falls into what I like to call the valley, which I'll show you in a second. Grab the tire bar again, carefully place it underneath the tire bead, on the duct's bill, and carefully lift up and flat-handed as well. Pulse the tire a couple times until you're safe to remove the tire bar. Continue to pulse, and you have proper tire removal. Remove the bar, the helper arm, the tire is now off the rim. With the tire removed from the rim, you need to look at the sidewall of the tire for very important information and numbers. This information and the numbers correspond with our lab, and it can help with looking at our instruction sheet that's on the front here and on the back side that will help you to finish off the lab. Now, before putting the tire back onto the rim, we need to learn a little bit of terminology. And one of them on the tire is called the bead. That's this big circle on the inside. It's a very stiff ring. That bead is going to correspond with the top or bottom of the rim here and here. So that is where the rubber seals to the rim. Now, the other factor that we need to learn about is the valley of the rim, and that's this concaved area right in the center. Now, because the tire is the exact same circle as the rim itself, the diameters, we need to have this valley in here in order for us to get that tire back on. So when I refer to having the bead in the proper setting or into the valley, we're talking about the bead of the tire going into this groove. Now it's time to put the tire back into its position. So we'll take a little bit of soapy water and just add to what we had before, and we're going to do both sides of the tire. Okay, put this back into the holder. Okay. Making sure that this tire is non-directional. If we are putting this onto a vehicle, now this is just a shock tire, so it can go on either way. If it's directional, it needs to rotate in the proper direction. Placing the tire onto the rim, bringing the bar that has been adjusted with the screw already, so all we need to worry about is our height. So bringing it down, resting it right on top of that rim, bringing the bar up to the vertical position, and that will then lift the duck's head enough from the rim so that's not going to damage it. The bottom bead is quite simple. You need to have the tire resting on top of the tail, but underneath the duck's head. The bead of the tire needs to be on the tail, but underneath the head. So again, on top of the tail, but underneath the head. With the bead on the tail and underneath the head, then we can slowly start to rotate the tire by using our pulsing motions. And our bottom bead will simply pop on. Now I should mention, I am doing the demo for you so you can see the machine, but if you were doing this for yourself, you would be standing in front of the machine and working on it that way for safety. We'll be doing the same thing for the top bead, in that it's going underneath the head on top of the tail. Okay, placing that in place. But then we are going to grab this tire installation helper, and we are going to be placing that on the rim, clamping it down so that the tire remains lower into the valley. By doing so, now we're almost hands-free. We're watching to make sure that the bead stays on the tail underneath the head, and this tool will help the beads remain in the valley. Remove the helping tool. Place it back onto its holder. Remove the duck and helper arm assembly. With the tire installed, we are now going to inflate the tire and seat the beads. To do this, we need to raise up the safety support, bring it up into the center of the rim, and this will allow us to use the air on the machine in order to set the bead. Grab the airline, the black airline from the machine, place it onto the Schrader valve without putting the valve in to the Schrader valve. This locks in place, gives you both hands free. Press down on that tire, and then carefully and slightly lift up on that tire, and that will help to set the bead as you're pressing the fourth pedal that's below on the machine. Now with that pedal, you only want to press it halfway. If you press it all the way, you'll have an influx of air that comes up. We don't want that. So just a half press on that pedal. So while that's happening, you're going to be waiting for 2 pops, and you just heard those, 1, 2. Now, you may need more than that, but the 2 pops mean that both beads have been installed properly and have seated themselves. So we're going to continue to inflate this tire while also watching this gauge and never going over 40. With pressure and the beads set, right now we're at about just under 20, we can now remove the air and replace the valve with the removal tool. So we can have this preset with one hand, remove the air hose, and insert it while delicately tightening the valve. And just finger tight, you can see that I have my pinky out. I consider it having tea with the queen. Just a little bit of torque. Place the tool back in. At this point, we grab our blue hose that has our air attachment on there for inflating the tire, and we will then inflate the tire to 32 psi and also check it with our tire pressure gauge. Once it's set to 32 psi, we can then remove the tire safety bar by pressing on this bar right here. Removes the tire bar out of the way. Release the dogs. Put the tire on the ground. And we are ready for the tire balancer.